Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show.
What we don't do enough is communicate what we actually do and why we're important to the business.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Strength in the Numbers. Now you've just heard some great advice from today's guest mentor, Lizi Hills, who's the Commercial Finance Director at Burger King UK. And how it came about, Lizi coming onto the show, is that a number of people at the conference approached me at drinks afterwards and had asked me had I seen Lizi's presentation. I said no, I think I was presenting myself at the same time. To which they said, yeah, you really got to get Lizi on the show. And when I delved further, it was great to find out Lizi was working at Burger King, where I used to work many years ago as well. So we were able to catch off air about that. But on the show, we were very fortunate to get some fantastic insights off of Lizi. And one of them you might sort of smile to yourself is how we describe the stereotypical accountant and what people think about accountants in general. Also, how accountants can better answer that question, what do you do for a living? So other people they're talking with don't run very far away from them or go to the other side of the room. We delve into the value of having good customer relations in finance and why an accounting career is rewarding. Also, some very good reasons why the hospitality industry is an exceptionally good fit for finance business partners. And also 3 steps we can all begin to take to start building customer relations. So look, hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did recording it with Lizi. And if you do want to find out more about it, please check out our timestamp show notes, key quotes, resources, and ways to connect with Lizi and more at SITNshow.com. So look, that's enough from me. So without further ado, over to Lizi and the show. Lizi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's our pleasure, and look, I suppose we sort of met or encountered each other at a summit many months ago, and then I had a number of people afterwards say, you need to get Lizi on the show. I said,
very kind.
We'll get a show. And no, but the thing is, so much time has passed since, I suppose, the conference. I mean, a lot's changed in our world, but delighted you could make it. But for some of our audience who may be not as familiar with your background, would you mind maybe sharing a bit about your story in accounting and finance?
Absolutely. So I'm currently a commercial finance director at Burger King in the UK, and I've been in the hospitality sector for the past sort of 5 or 6 years with a few other FD roles. I actually started my career at Pizza Hut when I left university. I kind of fell into accounting and finance, if I'm completely honest. I wanted to go to university to do sports and kind of just did economics because I'm dyslexic and I quite liked graphs, and it was kind of it was the nicest thing to do rather than the pure math side of things. And yeah, over the many jobs I had at university and at home when I was in the holidays, I just loved business. I didn't think I really understood what accounting and finance was. I definitely hadn't heard of PwC when I left school, that's for sure. And I think I'd always put things in boxes, understanding what, if you were an accountant, you did that. And it was my first job at Pizza Hut, which was kind of a business analytics partner, where I realised this was really interesting because I got to sort of use the maths I liked to sort of model examples and scenarios, but for a business context and help, pay people more money or save costs where, we're overpaying. And I just absolutely loved it. So I did a couple of jobs following university and then ended up doing financial restructuring and corporate finance for 5 years. Which, again, I was very lucky that I joined a firm which focused on deals in the leisure and retail sector. So there I did quite a number of deals, and I ended up working on a deal where we were buying and selling different restaurant brands. And then I ended up being asked to join that company afterwards as FD concessions business, so looking after airports and retail centres in shopping centres. So I did that for a couple of years, and then my boss left to join Burger King as a startup in the UK because we bought the rights to operate the UK market off of the US. And he asked me to join there for his sort of strategic / commercial finance. Yeah, I've been there now for 2.5 years and it's been amazing. It's been really, really fun.
And I suppose when you set out, Lizi, like you started in the hospitality industry or Pizza Hut and ended up, I suppose, working in hospitality the last number of years. Was that sort of a deliberate thing, or was it sort of you more fell into the hospitality piece? Is there something that attracts you to working in the sector you are?
I think, yeah, definitely out of choice. I think it's one of those strange things, isn't it? I've got a friend who works in retail, and she worked in a shop when she was 16, and I was first working like in restaurants and bars. cleaning up glasses. I just love that social environment, and I love being able to influence someone's day or someone's experience. And I think that's what I absolutely love about bars and restaurants. And when I was actually 16, I was very lucky to work in an owner-managed pub up in Bedford. And they will still be my best business mentors of my career, I think, because they owned their own business and they just explained to me how service worked and how to sort of treat customers and basically what the return you'll get on it as a result, because it was their own business. And they helped me look at the books. They explained, they made me upsell stuff, and they would give me a £5 if I could get rid of all the fish that was about to go off in a couple of days' time. And I just really understood how it all worked, and I loved it. And I just loved, just almost tips were a game for me. And I was like, how can I make these people have such a great experience to them, but it will also reward me? And I just loved it, and seeing people have, good birthday parties and enabling that to happen. And so it's definitely something as an experience to help with customers. I really, the customer facing side of hospitality, I really, really enjoy.
Which I suppose is interesting now, because we hear a lot about this in I suppose in finance now, is that we'd probably be more customer facing, closer to the customer, more intimate with them, I suppose is one expression. Do you find it's been useful to experience in terms of your forming experiences to bring that into the work you do in finance with you and your team at the moment?
I do think that's a team, like I said, the commercial finance team, which has a team of 4 business partners who's focused in different areas of the business. I think the empathy that is required also makes you really think about other people in how you deal with them. So, for example, I always say to my team, like, the marketing people don't really care about return on investment. They care about their deal getting signed off. But if you explain to them that how those two work together and how you can help them see that, it's fantastic. And actually now people ask us to come to meetings. They say, oh, can we bring Lizi along, or can we bring finance along? Because they know that we can give a sort of non-patronizing view of how it really works. And I think you're absolutely right. That kind of customer relationship bit is really key, because they know they need us, but they actually now want to work with us. And that's something that it takes some time and some relationship building, but it's really, really rewarding to see that.
Yeah, actually, I just I'm going to probably put a really tough question to you now, Lizi, because I get this a lot from our audience. Is I think we're now gaining the appreciation of that relationship piece, and it's key. Where would one of our listeners start in terms of trying to build that relationship? What would be a good first step to get, say, a marketing, a business person or a salesperson to a meeting with us?
It's definitely personal interaction. I mean, I know particularly in this world at the moment, personal interactions
that's why I said it was a tough question.
Few and far between. It's a one-on-one. I remember I actually worked at Apple back in the day when I was sort of on their sort of grad scheme for a bit. And I remember it was a room of, I was the only finance person there. And it was kind of more of a financial controller, managing budget kind of role as a junior. It was a big team of salespeople, and they were all men. And I was, 22-year-old girl coming in like, oh, hi guys, I'm going to tell you what you can and can't spend. This is Apple. They don't really like, they are God, they know everything, and etc. And you sort of say some things to people, and then it'd be really interesting. Then a few people, they would all be like, oh, in the meeting, yeah, in a big sales team. And then one by one, you just drop off and they'd leave. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks. If anyone needs to grab me, I'm just going to make a coffee. And then bit by bit, someone would come up and like, sorry, on a one-to-one, like, I didn't actually really understand what you meant by that. Do you mind just explaining? And they would never say that in a room, because, they don't want to look lose face in front of their colleagues either. But I think the problem with finance is people don't understand it. And they don't like maths, and they haven't liked maths from school. So they kind of put it all in that box that, like, that's untouchable. And I think some finance professionals maybe forget that. And I think what's really important is just getting into layman's terms and really explaining in the simplest possible sense, without being patronizing, what you're trying to achieve. And it's not, you don't have to use long words and accruals and understand, you just have to say what's actually happening and say, right, listen, we know you spent this money, you spent too much money, we need to pull it back from here. But explain it in their own terms. And I always use, when we're doing refinancings at work, and when someone says, oh, so what are you working on? I said, basically applying for a remortgage on our house. What language can they understand? And they're like, oh, okay. So we know we need to buy a bigger house because we need to open more sites. So therefore we need to remortgage our house. Like, it's the same difference, basically. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then straight away they get it. And I think it is difficult because, like I say, people switch off to it. So all I can say is just encourage the conversation. You might have to be the one that reaches out a lot more in the first instances, but just be that natural person, and just say that, I'm always here if you need a hand, and bit by bit they will come. And I think, just be as open as possible, and also don't give them any rubbish. Don't lie to them. Just be really honest and transparent. I think that's also quite key.
That's I suppose that sort of is embedded with the image, isn't it? It's just that transparency, honesty. But I do like your point though. Is trying to phrase things in terms of their language, and I suppose we can only do that in terms of understanding what matters to them. So let's say like we pick up in a conversation that that they've got a mortgage or something like that, and they'd love to reduce their mortgage. That could be a good way of phrasing something we see in the business world that links to them personally. So like we save your mortgage, or that'll pay for your kids to go to college, that amount of saving or something like that. Depends on where they are. So I really like how you sort of thought that one through. That's a really great bit of advice. But I suppose it's also catching ourselves, because I don't know about you, but when I did my accounting training, no one really told me that's the best way of getting messages across or building rapport or relationships. Is there any other tips for our audience to I suppose, be better at relationship building and rapport building?
I think a key facet now of what we have to do as accountants, and I do think, or as finance professionals, and I think like often my friends call me like the accidental accountant, or
That's a great name.
Wasted in finance or something, because I didn't qualify until I was 27. I didn't want to be an accountant. I think that's the key thing for me. Was
really?
That I never wanted to go out. I wanted a stable job, and I think I've always wanted to sort of have something that I can fall back on. And then I was like, oh, you know what? Like I should get a degree, because I remember working when I was 18. I just moved back to London, and I wanted to just get a job. I was working in financial services PR, just randomly on reception in this office. I was having an absolutely wild time. I just remember just thinking there and like being in these meetings, and there was all these sort of arty people with bankers. And I was like, you don't understand what they're talking about, and you're trying to sell it to you're trying to market them. And I just remember being like, oh, if I knew that and I could also talk, that'd be really helpful. So I just always saw kind of finances as something like, I'm good at maths. I know I'm good at maths because, like I said, I'm dyslexic, so English was never my strong point. I've always loved problem solving and stuff like that. So I thought, how can I use that to do something that other people can't do very well? And so I saw it as a kind of a tool to enable me to do something else. And I think people who go in really hard to want to be an accountant, and that's, I'm not saying that's the wrong way of looking at it, but you should see it as how it's going to assist you to do something else, not that that's the be all and end all, unless you're in tax or something that's really specific.
Yeah.
But I think that's how I saw it, as more of a tool to do something more. And especially in business now, we are so much more than just number crunchers. We can enable businesses to grow, and we can prove to investors why to take a chance on us. And I think that's so interesting. And we should see that as the end goal, not the kind of accounting piece. So those exams are a tool to get you into that place, not the end of your life. And that's all you're going to be now.
Yeah, but I think you also, and I'll just add to the point I think you made, you also highlighted that you sort of were aware of your strengths, and you chose something that you felt would make use of your strengths as well. I think that's key
yes,
too, because
absolutely.
it allows you to and I think that's a great thing with I suppose the technology agenda and the way finance is moving. I think there's definitely a role there for everyone if they can understand where the value's at, and where they can leverage those strengths to deliver that value. And I suppose I've also had a fascination with this term accountant, because like I know when people used to ask me what I was doing, I said I'm an accountant or whatever. And like there's that sort of common perception out there people just have of accountants. It's just they can relate to that. But you said we're so much more than that. So I think that was one of the key points you sort of made at the summit, really. And I think that's why people wanted to get try and get you on the show, was this sort of image we have, and changing the image of finance. Would you mind maybe sort of highlighting to our audience sort of some of the key themes you were sort of trying to share at the summit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, I think at the summit, I sort of said, put the fun back in finance. I also opened with a picture of, I'm sure many of you may relate to this or not, I hope you can, is from The Office, David Brent's Office. And there was Keith from accounts. And he was just the guy who said nothing, just sat there, chewed his gum, had no personality. And it was just they'd used that analogy of like an accountant because that's what people view us are. And that was the sort of stereotypical accountant in that stereotypical office. But it's so true, because that's what people think. Oh, are we going to be able to get that through finance? Or, oh God, don't try and talk to finance about that. You'll never get it passed. And you think that's the view people get, because we're the ones that sign off people's expenses and tell them, there's a fund and you can't, there's a budget for this and you can't go over the budget. And it's all just like, I don't blame them sometimes for thinking that's, even my finance team, and I was like, oh, you shouldn't have bought that bottle of water. And you think, oh, I get the principle, but it was before 7 a.m. and all that sort of stuff. And if that's the only side of finance that people see, then I don't blame them. And I think that's where it's still very much the case in a lot of firms, that that's all they see of finance. They don't see the kind of new business partnering angle. And again, a lot of people in finance aren't particularly outgoing. They're shy. They want to get on with what they're doing. And that's fine also. I don't think what we don't do enough is communicate what we actually do and why we're important to the business. And I think the more we can do that and be accessible, like it's even in our own office now at Burger King, we do finance is sat around one side of the office and all the creatives and all the fun people around the other side. I mean, it's just almost like, people have to physically walk around to finance. And you think, all that stigma as well. Like I encourage my team to sit, who are business partners with the rest of the business, to sit with their team. So the young lady who works with marketing, she sits in the marketing team 3 days a week. Like, so she's there so she can pick up on what people are saying and engage with them, and just and also prove that they show that they have the personalities that these people do have. But when you're sat there number crunching all day and you haven't really, you only come up for air once or twice to get a coffee. You sometimes don't blame that perception. So for me, it's really important that we get out there and companies enable their finance teams to get out there. So encourage them to have one-to-one meetings when going through their monthly budgets, or, to sort of see what spending reviews. Don't just send them an Excel and say, can you tell me what's happening here? Encourage that communication, and over time, and get your team out there. And even if it's in tiny ways like that, and having face-to-face meetings to go through budgets and accounts. And I think that's really, really important. And like I said earlier, like explain what you're doing and why it's important. So the other day I had to ask for some data of someone in a business. And I said, I know you're really busy at the moment with everything going on, but this data or this information will really help us open more restaurants and then get more people back to work, and give them what they're doing. And they feel like empowered, like, oh, wow, I'm really helping these people and the business to do something better. And I think that's where probably we're lacking, because we normally say, we need this thing, you need to send us that by this date, bang. Yeah. And it's not the bigger picture.
There's no appreciation of that why or the vision behind it, but like, that's, again, I sort of feel that we have this sort of existing image challenge, let's call it that, but not necessarily been trained on how to communicate the vision or how to keep in contact with people. But the very human qualities, I think that's the advantage we have. We're human beings, we're not quite robots, even though some people might think we're robots. So we can actually do this stuff. It is actually natural to us if we just opened our minds up to it, I think.
Yes.
And I love those examples, sitting in there with other parts of the business, being present, actually. I think that's a key one, also communicating the value we're adding. We're very much about recording the business performance. Where are we recording our performance and showing that to the business, saying, we're helping you do this. Have you got any more ideas where we can help?
Absolutely.
Just like some really great points in there, Lizzie. I suppose I know another thing. I think you're sharing some accounting jokes. Have you heard any good ones lately about accountants?
There was one that said, "How do you know when an accountant's on holiday? He's not wearing a tie."
Oh, boom, boom.
Because we're known as the ones who are always there, morning, noon, and night. Oh, there was a really good one that that a friend of mine said I must mention, but I'll have to look it up for them. That's the blinding one. I'll look it up for you.
Oh yeah. No, please do, please. I think my one was a bit like the what was it? Why did the auditor cross the road? And I don't know if you heard that one.
No, what is it?
No, because he checked the audit file and that's what it told him to do. So it's just But like, I suppose at least we can laugh about it. But I definitely I suppose I've stopped saying to people when they ask what you do for a living now. I don't really say to them I'm an accountant, because I know there's a lot of preconceived images out there. It's, like I sort of phrase it back in terms of what we actually do now. It's like I help businesses go and provide more employment opportunities, or I go help the business raise money, or I sort of phrase it in a better vision, and people then sort of want to engage with you and say, oh, how do you do that?
Yeah, and I think
sort of encourage people then.
It's very key, because people, when I often do that, and people say, oh, what do you do? I was like, oh, I'm finance director for Burger King, and they're like, oh. Then I'll be in a restaurant and be like, oh, so why are you here then? And then I explain, well, what that actually means. And then they say, well, that doesn't really sound like finance to me. And I was like, no, because that's what your view of finance is. And even my mother, bless her, she's like, I just can't see you as an accountant. I was like, but I'm not what you think is. I'm not an auditor. Exactly, like maybe that is. I do get that, but it's you're right. And people, like, when I've sat with teams before in my previous work as well, they're just like, why are you doing this job? And I'm like, because I really enjoy it. But they just have that stigma that, like, accountants sit in that room and get on with it. But I think what is also worth noting, to the point of not just about how we can improve our image, I must say that the amount of people that I've, also, like I said, I've got a couple of people in my team who've been quite shy, who yeah, maybe also struggle to reach out and engage. They get so much out of it as well. It's not just about what we're doing for the rest of the business. They love it, and you can see them growing in confidence. And it's like, then when they come to them instead of me, then and they're building up their own relationships. Oh, James just came over and asked me for the report, and I'm like, great! Like, they actually now want to come to us, and you will see so much of a more positive aspect for your own team as well, which is, I think, is what's really rewarding for me, is to see them grow, not just what we add to the business.
Well, that's it. I mean, I see that, and I think that's just the next bit, the string to our bow. It's just embracing the human side of what we do, and it's not always about the numbers. There's a lot more to it. So Lizzie, that's a fascinating conversation, and look, I really appreciate the advice, the pointers. I was curious though. I mean, what's been the best bit of advice you've ever received?
It's been playing to your strengths. I think when I started off, particularly in corporate finance, actually, like I said, I was the first one in my family to go to university. I was working in the City of London, and I just felt like a bit of an imposter, and that I didn't really belong there. I was always the one who was, always drinking pints after work with the lads, and you sort of think that whole kind of corporate image wasn't really me. They were actually some of my happiest years in a way, because I was even more myself, because probably I felt a bit more of an imposter than I would have been otherwise. I never wanted to. I'm very lucky that I've been one of those characters who never wants to sort of fit in. And I remember after a few beers, I was like, I think I was speaking to one of the guys in the team who's very well to do. And I was like, you must think I'm an absolute nightmare. And he was like, no, you're an absolute asset to what we do. He was like, you're out here talking to the people who own these bars and restaurants. He's like, don't think this is a patronizing thing when I say it, but you speak their language. They warm to you because you're just genuinely interested in what they're saying. It's not a front with you. Some people, especially advisors and stuff, sometimes they see every client as a fee. That's putting people in don't want to put people in boxes. I know that's not the case for everything, but he was like, it's just refreshing to have a new attitude. And it was really nice for me to hear that, because I was always worried that I didn't quite fit in and I wasn't one of the team, because I didn't really go to the right school or what have you. And it's just giving me that confidence to always retain that we're all different, and we shouldn't just be what people think we should be in that role or in that organization or that function. It should be all about just being really, really true to yourself and just adding as much value as you can. And to be humble, I think, as well. It's just not to sort of you might be the smartest person in the room or think you're the smartest person in the room, but that doesn't matter. What really matters is getting the most out of the situation you're in, be it personally, professionally, and for the business. And I think just always remembering that, this is a job, this is an employment, and you don't want to be a different person in your work life as your personal life. You just want to be yourself, and that's the best advice I've probably been given.
Yeah, I mean, how if you were any other way, how could you bring your best self to the work you do?
Yes.
It's just a no brainer. But Lizzie, I think more and more people need to hear that. And no, really, really courageous you sharing that. So appreciate you doing that, Lizzie. And then I suppose, look, from a resources perspective, are there any books or resources you found useful you could perhaps share with our audience?
It's a really interesting book, actually, that it's a kind of sports/business book. I used to do a lot of rowing, actually, when I was younger. I was obsessed by the Olympics, and I still am obsessed by the Olympics. The Olympics are life, and I couldn't be more gutted that they're not being held this year. But to see people's grit and determination, and with a 4-year window, especially as a rower, that is the pinnacle of sport, as the Olympic Games. It's not a World Cup or World Championships. And yet, to literally sacrifice 4 years worth of work for one race is just incredible. And when I started up, I was 13 years old when the Sydney Olympics was happening. That summer holidays, my mum had shoved me off on a rowing course for like a half-term summer holidays to sort of get me out of the house. And I didn't really have any interest in it whatsoever, but I'm very tall, as you might remember, and I was actually really good at it. And it was that summer, the guy from my rowing club, Tim Foster, was in the Olympic 4 with Steve Redgrave. And his brother was actually coaching me, a guy called Jason. The whole thing set my heart on fire. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to race and compete. But the best story of the Sydney Olympics was actually the men's 8. And they were the underdogs. It was all about the Cox's 4 with Steve Redgrave. And the men's 8 were kind of the rogue ruffians, probably jailbait types who had all put in this boat together. They didn't have the funding as much as everyone else or the crew, and they completely funded themselves, but they all were completely committed to win this race, and they did. And it was just, it makes me go tearful even thinking about it, watching that race, because they just absolutely smashed out the blocks. One of the guys from that 8 wrote a book, and it's called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? And he said it's about their entire rowing journey, but it's now sort of flexed to a sort of business mindset. And basically they said to themselves, every single decision they make, they ask themselves, well, will it make the boat go faster? So when they have the pint, will it make the boat go faster? Probably not. Okay, I'll have a water. Or should I do that extra training session? And that's what every single one of them promised they would do for each other as a team. And it was just the most motivating read. And just to see them when they crossed the line, there was such a bond between them. And I think everything we can think about, and, especially with processing and accounting, there's a lot of tasks when you actually say, why are we doing that? People are like, oh, like you say, it's like because the audit book said so. It's like, because we've always sent that report out. But do people use it? Do people actually read it? And it's the same with adding value as a team, as I said earlier, like how to get that value out. When a new guy joined my team, someone left and we got a new person to join. And I canned 80% of the reports the previous incumbent sent out. And I was like, well, what's my job then? I was like, you tell me what it is. What do you want it to be? Like, just because he sent that out, I want you to go out and ask all those people those reports went to if they used it or not, or if they did, what did they use? So can we now reduce the number and put it all on the same page? And it's like, what are we doing? And will it make our boat go faster? And I think it's just a really nice analogy, even if you read the book, it's that the heading of it. Why are we doing it, and will it help? And I think that's a question we should really ask ourselves as finance professionals, but as general professionals in there who also want to run maybe leaner organizations or give people, more flexible working. Someone in your team, wants to have 4 days a week. Okay, fine. Yeah. How do we make it more flexible for you to do that? And how do we, be more efficient and maybe less, chained to the desk? And I think it's a really important angle for me. So that book is definitely one that's resonates really strongly with me.
Sounds like a great read. I'll have to check that one out. So thanks Lizzie, and I'll put the links to that in the show notes as well. I suppose in terms of our audience, if they wish to continue the conversation, where's the best place to connect with you at?
On LinkedIn, I guess. On my presence, I should probably update my profile a bit because my picture's probably a bit more flattering than the current situation is. But yeah, LinkedIn is a great place to get me on there.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for that, Lizzie. And I suppose, look, you've shared some fantastic insights. Your journey. We sort of touched on our sort of image, making that so better, and also embracing ourselves a bit more and being ourselves. Would you perhaps have maybe any other parting thoughts for our audience?
I just think be confident and be brave, and and ask the questions. I think even to that point I just made about sort of like flexible working. I think people just are scared of uncertainty, particularly accountants, of course, and they don't want to put us back in our box that I tried to talk us out of. But we are risk-averse people. We want stability. But I just think we should, stand up for ourselves a bit more. And I think our job is to present better ways of doing things, and options and solutions for businesses. And I think be proud to do that yourself as well. I know that to run a flexible team, that's what you need to do, and to keep people happy and engaged. But if you can prove a point, which we can do more than anyone in the business, be brave to ask for what you want and for what you think the business can operate for. And if you know what it's like, if you can prove to your boss you've done the hard work for them and prove them the solution, not the problem, you'll be batting down your offers afterwards. So I think it's really important just to stand up for ourselves, be brave, and be proud of what we do. And though I've said, let's not all trying to pretend to be wacky accountants, be proud of what we can do and what value we can add, and don't see that as a sort of stigma, see that as a real benefit.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to finish the show. So Lizzie, really appreciate you coming on the show today, investing your time with us on Strength in the Numbers.
Not at all. Thanks so much for having me.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me and we can connect. And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. When all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.